All right, so now I want to talk about mounting and unmounting. So I'll start with a clean app, nothing funny, because if not, it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to explain you this. So whenever we start a view instance, we are triggering that instance whenever the document loads. All right, document loads is going to read this, and then when it reaches this part, it's going to know that we need to start a new instance, and it's going to go to the app and do whatever is that it needs to do. And this is because we are passing the selector, right? So it knows that it needs to do something inside of here. Now, what if you don't want to do that? Maybe you want to start this view instance after something happens. Maybe a network request. You're making a network request to bring a user, and you only want to fire this after you get, the user data. So, okay, so let me put some data first. I'm going to say div, and I'm going to be adding a name, of course. So inside of the app, I'm going to add some data. So open and close data, and the name, of course, yeah, Francis. Very good. All right. So of course, if I reload this, we kind of know it works. We get Francis. This is how we've been using this. And this is because we are passing this. Now, if I remove the L property, view will not know where to start. So it will not start at all. So if I just remove this one and reload the application, we get the curly braces and nothing really happens. All right. So how can we dynamically tell the view instance to start working or do your job on this app? All right. How can we do it? Really simple. Much simpler than you think. So I'm going to say set timeout. So we can fire this after a couple seconds. So set timeout, open and close. And we're going to say 3 seconds. And I'm going to say, okay, so since we have the app1, this instance, inside of the a variable called app1, first I make a reference to this. And then I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use mount. And notice that sometimes when we make references to something inside of view, we are using the $sign. So we're going to use this $sign a lot. So by saying mount, we are telling, okay, view, you need to start, do your job on, and then we pass the ID of where this instance is going to work. It could be on app1, maybe you have a different div and you with a different ID, so you can dynamically pass the ID if you wish. In this case, it's going to be app number 1 or app. So if I reload the application, nothing is going to happen, but after 3 seconds, it's going to work. All right, really, really cool. So we can dynamically start an instance. So now before we can mount a component, we see the ugly curly braces, right? So it's very, very ugly. And it makes sense because until this point, after 3 seconds, we don't have nothing. We don't have anything related to view. That's why we get this. And, maybe you don't want to do this because, the user, as soon as they enter to the web page, they're going to see this ugly thing and you don't want that. Of course, you don't want it. So what we can do, we can tell view what to render inside of here. So instead of putting the code inside of the app directly, what we can do, we can create a template. Maybe you come from PHP or maybe Laravel. Well, this is the same idea. You can create a template, and whenever everything is ready, you can kind of mount that template inside of the instance. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to go to our instance. I'm going to put a comma. And just like we do with methods and computed and everything else, we have a reserved property called template. So this one will receive, some code. In this case, it's just a div with the name from data. Now, whenever if I save it, reload the application, nothing is going to happen because we don't have code. And when it loads, it's going to grab whatever you have on the template and it's going to put it inside of the app. So, this template right now is really, really simple, but you could you could have much more code or maybe some complex code. But you can do not to, because maybe you have a lot of code, maybe putting the code right here, it's a little bit messy, So what you can do, you can store this on a variable. I'm going to say const template equals to, and I'm going to copy this one, paste it right here, and say that template is equal to template, right? So template. If I reload the application, after three seconds, we kind of get it. And now what is important is that on this template, you can use whatever you want from Vue, right? Vue is going to take the template, it's going to convert everything, and then it's going to put it right here. You could have directives, you could have whatever is that you want to get, whatever you're using from Vue inside of the template. And if you're thinking, you must be, asking yourself, are templates useful? Yeah, they are. They're just like a component. We will use them the whole time. And this gives us the key to the next subject, which is components. So now we're going to talk about components. And components are like much more complex templates. They are not just like templates, of course, but we could do a lot of things, some very similar things, and then some more. So I'm going to go back to the usual code. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete the data. I'm going to delete the template, the set timeout. And on here, I'm going to say, go back to the usual code. I'm going to create the L and put the ID of app, just back to the start. All right. So now instead of just adding some code or template inside of here, what I want to do is to link everything with a component. All right. So by creating a component, what we can do whenever after we create the component, we can make a reference to that component just adding a tag. For example, I'm going to create a component called name. So if I do something like this, Vue is going to know that we are making reference to a new component. So it's going to search in your code, some code for that component. Of course, this is going to fail because we don't have a valid component. We don't have it. It says unknown. All right. So how can we, create a component? So I'm going to go here, and it's outside of the Vue instance. And first, we make a reference to Vue. And again, we're going to do this a lot. We are making a reference to Vue. And then we say component. By doing this, we are registering a new component. All right. So I'm going to say that this one calls name. Then I'm going to do comma, open and close. All right. Now, of course, if I reload the application, we kind of get the same errors, but something different. Template or render function not defined. Okay, that is good. We are on the good track. We are getting different error messages. So this Vue component needs to, of course, return something or do something. In this case, I want to render that div with the name. So I'm going to go back to the name. I'm going to say data, open and close, name, and this one, it's Francis. And inside of here, instead of adding the template on this instance, I'm going to add it on the component. So I'm going to say template, open and close, and we're going to do that div with it before, open and close again, and make a reference to that name. Right, name. So if I reload the application, we don't get anything, of course, but we kind of get a different message. We are on the good track. That's good. So, okay. The thing is that with components, you cannot just maybe register templates. You can do whatever it is that you do, or maybe you can add whatever you add right here. You can add methods. You can add data. So it's like creating a new Vue instance. But of course, this is a component. All right. So if I go right here and say data, just like this, open and close, and I put the name of Francis inside of here, this should be working, right? Because it's just like a Vue instance. All right. So if I save it and reload the application again, it works, but now we get a different error message, and that is okay, And this is the problem, and it's a little bit weird. Whenever you add data on a component, you need, and this is a must, create the data as a function. You cannot put the data as an object. You need to return a function, and that function will be returning some object. I know it is a little bit weird. I'm going to delete it and do it again. I'm going to say data, but data, it's not an object. It is a function, right? And this function will be returning some object. Now the object will have this Francis. So I'm going to say Francis. All right. So now we have a component with the data that has an object with the name of Francis, and it returns a template, and everything should be happening on the app. All right. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to reload it, and now everything works. So we get Francis, and we get no error messages. So you could do whatever you want right here on this component. You can even create a method. So I'm going to go right here and say methods, open and close, and let me do it before the template. So I'm going to say methods, open and close, and I'm going to create a function called alert something. Open and close. And of course, I need to put a comma. So this one, it's going to be just a function that alerts something. So alert, hello there. Real simple. So now what I want to do, whenever I trigger this function, I want to alert this. So I'm going to be adding this on the template. So I'm going to make this a little bit nicer. So I'm going to add a button, open and close. Well, actually, I'm not getting the close of this, but that's okay. And whenever I click it, I want to trigger this alert something function. So I'm going to use the add, the click, and then I'm going to be passing the alert something. And this one is going to be alert something. All right. Now I'm going to reload the page, and we're going to get an error message. So compiling template error. And this is okay. Maybe you come from React. Well, this is the same problem with components. On the render, where actually you put the code, the JSX, you cannot just pass two different elements. The template can only return a single element. But now we have two. How can we just send one? We have to pick one? Well, not really. We just need to wrap everything on a parent element. In this case, I can create a div and put everything inside of a div. So what we'll be returning is just a single element, which is this div. All right, let me go back, make it nicer. There we go. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go to the to here, and now we can have get a different error message. But this is actually my mistake. We get a div, and yeah, sorry for that. So now we reload it, and of course we don't get an error message. We are getting Francis, we get the alert something, and if I click it, we get the hello there. All right, and everything works. This is really cool, and but what is the point of doing all of this? This component, we could do this on this instance. What is the point of creating a new component, making a reference to that component? Why are we doing this? The point of doing all of this is that you can create reusable code, right? If I copy this and paste the same code at the bottom, I can reload the application and we get it twice, and they are going to work. Everything works. So maybe you have some code, maybe a widget or something else that you are going to repeat in your code. Maybe you have it on a different instance. Maybe you have, I don't know, app number 2 or something like that, and you want to run pretty much the same code. You just can copy and paste. You don't need to do it twice on both instances, right? Just create one reusable component and you use it, right? So this is why components are really important. And this is just like templates. Are we going to use components? Yeah, the whole time. Maybe not right now, because right now we are learning the basics, but when we get to Node.js and everything else, we pretty much create a component for everything. All right. So on the next section, we are gonna talk about life cycles. Don't skip this lecture. It's really important. So let's go to the next one.